Hello, y'all. I am back again. So I did a video this morning, verbal abuse and escalating reactive abuse. And it talks about the dynamic of how a narcissist begins verbal abuse upon empathic people and how the result is escalating verbal abuse from empathic people. So that was basically the example that I gave out. However, this is going to be a part two to that. So um, I'm going to put that video in the description box below. The live that I did this morning about the verbal wars. I'm sorry. If I worded it wrong, I apologize. Verbal wars, not verbal abuse. Okay, so I'm going to correct that. It's verbal wars and escalating reactive abuse. Okay, so I'm going to describe it again. It's when narcissists will begin verbal wars through name calling, insults, devaluations, hollering at you. Narcissists begin verbal wars, and empaths will go into escalating reactive abuse over time. Thank you so much for the like. So hopefully that makes sense. So I'm going to put that video down in the description box, but I'm giving you the update on how it goes. So remember, verbal wars is through speaking, not a text war. Now, I did mention in the first video with the verbal wars how texting was part of it. But remember, it's a verbal war. You're not creating a full out text war. So, verbal wars, the text leads to some sort of verbal discipline, and it's a process that empathic people will go through when they're beginning to retaliate, emotionally protect themselves, and just truly fight a narcissist back. I mean, over time, you just get tired of it. So, remember, it's not a text war. So, I'm going to give you the update. You have to go watch the 2 hour live video about the verbal wars. Okay. I can't go over everything that's in that video, but I'm going to give you an update on what happened. So, I get this text message, right? And remember, this is talking about my own son that's been considered by the courts as an undiagnosed psychopath. So you got to understand that means there's no conscience. So he sicked his gay or homosexual half brother on me, which is not my biological son, but is his brother from his father. Okay, so this is what my son sends me. Okay, this is what he sent me. So I'm reading you this text. Okay, now remember, verbal wars, you don't want to go into a deep text war. That's not how you want to do it. Don't do the texting war. Now, I mentioned in part one of verbal wars how texting was a little part of it. So this is what the text says. This is from Elijah. A son that's no longer allowed in my home, and a son that I no longer go around. This is the update on him. And you will, once I read this text, you'll understand why I don't affiliate with him. So Elijah says, seriously, dude, this is what he's calling me. He's calling me a dude. Now, in this case, because it's a verbal war, and I did the video on that, it's okay to be calling me a dude, because basically his gay or homosexual brother came back and basically said, you know, your mom retaliated. Talking to her was probably like talking to another nigga. So in this case, it's okay that he's put me in the category of a dude, because these are two males that are attacking me in this verbal war. One is my own son, and the other was his homosexual brother. So, with that being said, it's okay that they're putting me as a dude, because what this means is they're gonna not come around my house and leave me alone. Somebody said, guess what? Guess what? Okay. So, hello, dang it, Dane. Guess what? No, you tell me, guess what? Okay. So if you don't care, get off the live. I mean, you don't have to care. Go watch something else you care about. Why would you be here? It makes no sense. Just go to another person's channel if you're not interested. The video just started. How do you know you don't care when it just started? So, um, so anyway, but thank you so much for the chat. Dang it, Dane. So, okay, the text says, seriously, dude, this is the text message. This is from the middle son, Elijah. Stop talking to me. You're just really annoying. Bye. I'm blocking your ass and stop calling me from your dumb no caller ID number that I don't know, because you ain't about to act like you better than me and my brother. He's talking about his homosexual brother. Now, I never said I was better. In the text message that I sent before this one, I was basically letting them know that I'm older than them and there's some respect that should be in place. Like there's a hierarchy, right? So nobody ever said I was better. I'm not in competition with my son or his gay brother. So remember, the verbal war has pretty much been handled. So the good thing about this text is because I handled the verbal war with my middle son and his half brother from his dad's side, in this text, I'm at least not being called by Felicia, by bitch. There's no name calling of me on this text, which that's a good thing, except being called a dude. And that's because the homosexual brother has probably came back and said, ooh, she was that one sentence she said to me, she sounded like a man, something like that. So you can kind of get a grasp or get an idea of what their conversation could have been like. But this is one thing Elijah told me back in 2022. Thank you so much for the light. This is my middle son that's not allowed around anymore. He said this, and I've talked about this on other lives. He said, if I were you, I would wish I didn't have a son like me. And since he said that, in the last 4 years of interacting with Elijah has not been a great experience at all. Hello, Allie's World. So you were on thank you so much, Allie's World, for coming back. I appreciate you so much, girl, for coming back. This is part 2 of verbal wars and escalating reactive abuse. So I got this text, Allie. I'll read it right quick from Elijah. The middle son says, seriously, dude, stop talking to me. You're just really annoying. Bye. I'm blocking your ass. And stop calling me from your dumb no caller ID number that I don't know, because you ain't about to act like you better than me and my brother. This is narcissistic behavior. Narcissists are always like in a competition with anybody, whether it be their parent, their siblings. There's this competition aspect, which he should not be in any way. I never said I was better than anybody. All I basically said in the text that I sent was that they need to stop it. Him and his brother, Lil Kenny, need to stop it. That's all I said. So I said, get it right and stop it. They're both disrespectful. So in this instance, I'm not going to block Elijah. And this is why. I'm not going to block him as of now, because police and detectives have been telling me for 4 years to file a restraining order on him. Okay. That has been the number one legal advice, um, whether it be the detectives, the police. This is what they always say. So in this instance, I'm not going to block Elijah because that potentially blocks any evidence in case I would want to pursue that avenue. But this is what I'm going to say. Thank you so much for the likes, y'all. So it's unfortunate, even though Elijah is a biological son, I cannot go around this man or this male. He's a male. See, this is the thing. Elijah got on drugs, and you never know what drugs have done to the brain. But as far as I know, he's pretty much sober now. He's being evicted. So I should consider a restraining order while he's at the address that he's at, because he's not going to be there much longer. Or it may be a shortened time because he has about 15 or so days to reply to this paperwork. So just say within the next 6 months or so, 3 months or so, he may have to move out of where he's at. So he has a $15,000 bill. Been at this place 2 years, hasn't paid rent for about 10 months. Okay, so that meant he would have lasted a good 14 months paying the rent. Thank you so much, Allie's World. So he paid rent pretty good for about 14 months of it. Okay, so the thing with verbal wars, you don't want to make it a text war. So I explained how to handle a verbal war, and Elijah's surroundings. He has Kaylin around, the girlfriend with the deceased mother. Her mother's been passed away since she's been about, I think, 11 years old. So he has the homosexual brother that has the mother that's in the nursing home that's paralyzed from the waist down. That's very unfortunate that Lil Kenny's mom is now paralyzed in a nursing home. So Elijah is surrounded around people that either don't have good relationships with their mothers or can't. Elijah also has a good male friend. I got along with him okay. He had beef with his mom. I think him and his mother have worked it out. This is one of Elijah's friends. That gentleman, his mother had actually filed a restraining order against him. So Elijah's surroundings, like I said, he's either around people that their mother no longer talks to him, their mother is deceased and can't talk to him, or their mother is no longer able to supply the needs of the narcissist. So like Lil Kenny, that would be an area that the homosexual brother falls in. The mother is no longer able to supply the needs of the narcissist because she's paralyzed and in a nursing home and in a wheelchair. Unfortunately, I wish she was not in that situation. I have nothing against Lil Kenny's mother. So always look at a person's surroundings. Okay, so because Elijah's a narcissist and an undiagnosed psychopath, there's nothing in his head that's gonna stop him from verbal wars with me. He's gonna always enter into them with me. And this is why the police and detectives have advised me since 2022 when he was doing robberies in the neighborhood. No armed robberies with a real gun, but the detective been advised me to file a restraining order. One reason I didn't file one is because I'm like, well, what if Elijah needs help or support? He's still my son. So, but this is not a son. You got to understand this. Elijah is my son, but he's not a son. And he doesn't have intellectually, he's showing that he's extremely slow. When a male acts like this, they kind of like below kindergarten level. And I'm not trying to like make fun of my own son or nothing like that. But Elijah know better and was raised better. So, like I said in part one, verbal wars and escalating reactive abuse, I mentioned this as well in that video I did this morning, that a narcissist always starts verbal wars. Okay, always. So no matter what, there's no filter, there's no compassion, there's no personality control of themselves for them to stop it. So when I'm like backed off from the situation and I just leave it alone, because I vented and I did my video to educate y'all here as to what happened over the weekend, starting from Friday with Kaylin, Elijah, and the gay or homosexual half brother. Okay. So that video is very interesting, probably a little entertaining as well. Okay. Watch that video. I'll put it in the description box here. Verbal wars and escalating reactive abuse. I explained the cycle. So, also, I do encourage a way to handle things, but I'm also not toxic where I'm going to have you doing this forever. Okay. So, what I mean by this, I explained to you how I handled a verbal war that started from Friday through Sunday or Friday through Monday. I handled it, but I'm also not saying to stay in it permanently. I'm not suggesting that in any way you got to stay in a verbal war with a person the rest of your life, because I do believe in peace and I talk about peace on this channel. Now, there's been outsiders that kind of are familiar with this situation. People that don't even live in the house, okay? They'll always say Elijah's a lost cause, okay? And it's probably in my best interest at this point to follow or get it on the road, or maybe accept the possibility that the police and detectives may be right when they say restrain him. They wouldn't be saying file a restraining order on Elijah if he was such a good guy, right? Elijah admitted in 2022, prior to July 2022, he said, if I were you, I would wish I didn't have a son like me. Now, what Elijah is, the blunt of what he is, and what he mostly is, coming from my St. Louis, Missouri perspective, going off how I was raised, Elijah is a snake. He's a snake. So someone says, what am I talking about? Hello, Slick671. I'm talking about, thank you for joining. I'm talking about verbal wars and how narcissists start verbal wars with us through speaking, of course, and emotional abuse, verbal abuse, and how empaths, we do what you call escalating reactive abuse. So I did a video this morning about it. It's a live that I did, a live video, and I'm doing like a part 2 to that because I got this text message. This is from my own biological son, the middle son, the one that's not allowed around here. And this is why. One thing I'm not is desperate for company or people. And you got males killing their mamas now, right? And this is how it begins. When a male is saying, seriously, dude, he's calling me a dude. I'm not a dude. Seriously, dude, stop talking to me. You're just really annoying. Bye. I'm blocking your ass. And stop calling me from your dumb no caller ID. I don't know. Because you ain't about to act like you better than me and my brother. I never said I was better than him. His his biological brother, half brother that I haven't talked to in 2 years, called me Saturday morning and began hollering and screaming at me. I was in a no contact with his half brother that's gay and homosexual. I'm not acting like I'm better than anybody. The only person I was talking to here and there is my biological son. So the homosexual and gay brother began harassing me Saturday morning, woke me up out of my sleep from an unfamiliar number that I didn't know about. So, verbal wars, narcissists and psychopaths will start verbal wars with us. Okay, so I just gave an example of how I handle it. Okay, but I'm also not encouraging full chaos in your life. You know, these verbal wars I enter into are brief to get the narcissist off my back, but I'm not going to go on with this 2 more weeks, 2 more years. I'm not going to keep going on with it. The verbal wars, I handle those so narcissists and psychopaths understand to stay away from my crib. Okay. Stay away from my family's job. Stay away from my job. Stay away from my school. Stay away from my church. Stuff like that. That's why I go into verbal wars so that I can function, or I respond to verbal wars. I don't initiate verbal wars, but I respond to verbal wars so I can comfortably be out in the community and do what I need to do and not be in fear, or have narcissists and psychopaths thinking I'm so scared of them that I can't go outside no more. Okay. I don't want to live like that, and I'm not going to live like that. So I strategically, because of the experience I have, I know how to handle verbal wars. Thank you so much for the likes, y'all. Please like, share, and subscribe. You can share this live right on your Facebook page. Okay. So this is the point I got to get to. So because I'm not entering into text wars, because I have a narcissist and text messaging series that I do. I think I did up to part 10. I'm very consistent here with my lives. So if you want a YouTuber that's entertaining, educational, giving some good advice and suggestions, that is dedicated to their channel, please subscribe, because you will get that right here. Okay. So, and share the video. Thank you so much for the likes. So it's nothing I'm going to be able to do with Elijah. Now, he's had an eviction filed against him. He's upset. And he also doesn't connect any karma that may come upon him to how he treats me. So this is Elijah is very unaware in general of the serious consequences of this behavior. He couldn't handle the penitentiary. That much I know. He would get ate up and mauled in the penitentiary because, for one, he's a nice looking male. And see, this seriously, dude, text, this works with me, not other prisoners, right? Okay. If Elijah was in the penitentiary, they would pass him around and do horrific things to him, because the fact of the matter is he's only tough with me. And I'm not wishing it on him. I just know it's kind, right? And so, unfortunately, Elijah, even though he's my middle son, he's at great risk of being murdered. Okay, because the problem is, and I'm saying this for facts. Let me explain to you why I'm saying this. Elijah has received numerous death threats over the past several years. He even told me that a man in a park put their gun to his head. He didn't shoot him, of course, but there's already been a pistol put to his head. It was a random guy. I don't think Elijah knew why the guy was doing it. I thank the Lord that the man didn't shoot my son in the head. I am in no way wishing death upon my own son. I'm glad he wasn't killed. But see, the thing is, Elijah is getting too old for this. And the lack of control he has, even with me, he should never underestimate the anger of anyone that he continues to antagonize, not even his own mother. I don't trust anybody. I wouldn't trust my own mother harassing her like this. I would be ducking up under a bridge if I sent my mother a text saying, seriously, dude, calling me a dude, y'all. But it, like I said, in this case, because I handled the verbal war, this is the category that the homosexual brother and Elijah has put me in, which is a safe category. Because to put me in a dude category means since I'm now a dude, they're not going to roll up to my crib. So it's okay. But at the same time, Elijah could have showed me that he's not going to roll up to my crib or come to my residence by calling me mom. So I've already cut off all financial support to Elijah. I no longer go around Elijah or anyone he's around. And I'm going to continue to do that. That's the safest way to do things. I should not trust Elijah, Kaylin, or the homosexual brother. It's just like, what's the sister name? Mahogany Jackson, I think. She was in Alabama and she went over there and all those so-called friends jumped her, raped her, and tortured her and just threw her on the side of the road like she wasn't nothing. I think it was Mahogany Jackson in Alabama. The pretty black girl that got harmed. It was a big mess. So up to 8 of them harmed her. And this is how this type of stuff happens. Because Mahogany Jackson, she ran up on some serious narcissists. You know, she wanted her gun or money or whatever back. And she had initially told one of her friends to make him strip his clothes off and give her stuff back. So she just had no idea of how evil they would be when they retaliated. I mean, pretty much soulless individuals. And I don't call that escalating reactive abuse. That's not escalating reactive abuse when you go that far. Because when I mentioned escalating reactive abuse in my first video this morning, I'm talking about empaths, the way we would handle it. So remember, verbal wars, you don't want to turn it into a text war. I go over narcissism and text messaging part. So in this case, this should be a text that should be ignored. So what you want to do is advance things in the more professional category. The verbal wars, I've handled it. So the homosexual brother, he knows not to call me anymore, screaming at me about Elijah. He's already told Elijah, man, I'm not calling your mama. The bitch is out of her mind. He's already said that. But remember, I never initiated a verbal war with any of these people. I was asleep and at peace in my residence in my comfortable bed Saturday morning till I got this call at 10:58 a.m. Saturday from a deranged, psychopathic, homosexual, gay brother that's a half brother of my son Elijah through the dad side. Okay, so this is what I should do. Okay, Elijah says, seriously, dude, stop talking to me. That's what I should do right there. I should have been did this. But a mother tries her best. My hope was that Elijah would get it right and somehow I could have some kind of decent family relationship with Elijah again. But that is not going to be possible because I am convinced that Elijah is what the courts called him. He was not in the courtroom. Elijah's name was brought up in the matter, and the prosecutor declared that part of Daniel and I ongoing problems that we were having in our life, in the criminal system, and in our home is because a undiagnosed psychopath, which is Elijah, my middle son, contributed to our life and was in the home at one time and had been in our life too long, had been in our life too long. So they ain't lying on this man. See, the undiagnosed psychopath, it means that there is no emotional empathy and they're worse than a narcissist, especially if they are low intellectually in the head. See, Elijah, he don't act like somebody with a very high intellectual, emotional ability, right? Emotionally, you know, you could be low intellectually, like book smarts, but you could have a very high emotional equivalency. Your EQ could be very high because your emotional intelligence really sometimes overrides book intelligence for real. If you have emotional intelligence, book intelligence is not nothing. Your emotional intelligence is what you really, really need to survive. Book intelligence, yes, you need that too. But so with this situation, it's a verbal war. I took care of it. So I want you to understand verbal wars don't go on forever. So this is a good part two to part one. Okay. So what I'm going to do, and of course I do narcissism and text messaging parts as well. So I'm just going to add a little dose of that in here. I ignored this text. This text came through at 9:50 a.m. It didn't come through as a call. Okay. And this is why Elijah did not call, because I'm handling the verbal wars. He's not contacting me saying this stuff to me because every time he run his mouth, he called me a name. He called me and talked crazy. I say this, you should have been aborted. So the verbal war is taken care of. That's why I say you got to handle verbal wars. Nobody in your family, son or not, should be able to think it's okay to call you and call you out of your name whenever they want to. That is why I did the video on verbal wars. And you do not need to be a male to react to a verbal war that a narcissist is doing. You just need to be a strong lady. I don't need to be a guy to handle a verbal war. So the verbal war is handled. That is why Elijah is not calling me and talking shit. So what an empathic person needs to do in a case like this, don't begin a verbal war. Never begin it. Escalating reactive abuse is different than just straight up starting shit. So Elijah didn't call. The half brother of Elijah that's gay, a gay man, didn't call. Okay. Elijah's very naive too. Very, very naive. You have to ask yourself, what's this gay brother's interest in Elijah? Elijah's a very handsome man, right? And from what I've heard way down the road from other people outside of Elijah, the gay brother now has HIV, right? Okay. Um, and I hope he lives out his days. I'm not making fun of the HIV at all, but this is what I heard through the Gay Brothers family members, not Elijah. He didn't tell me this, other people. Okay, so Elijah, this is why I pray he never go to the penitentiary, because Elijah is a um very intellectually and very naive. You know what he reminds me of? I'm gonna tell you the truth. And I said this a few weeks ago. Y'all know about Jeffrey Dahmer. You got to remember, most of those men, 90% of them that he got and killed, they were black males. They were friendly. They believed Jeffrey Dahmer just because he was a white man and he say, want some, you want to, I'm a cook for y'all. You want some pork chops? You want some steak? Them black males had no idea they was getting ready to be the steak. They was the steak. He ended up murdering them, putting them in the freezer, refrigerating them. And Elijah has the same spirit of the black males that Jeffrey Dahmer got. Okay, because it's almost unbelievable. Elijah used to be one of my most intelligent children. He actually wanted to be a psychiatrist. Elijah used to study all kind of stuff. He was very, very educated young man. But since he's used some drugs, he's used a lot of vape, marijuana, some of that stuff takes your smarts away. So Elijah, he ain't got no game. So Elijah needs to ask himself, what is this homosexual male big brother that's not my mother's son? What does he want with me? For real. He puts pink hats on Elijah. I've already told Elijah that's part of grooming. The homosexual half brother has also said that he's gonna teach or introduce Kalen's son Imani to homosexuality. And I've already told Elijah not to have that homosexual around Kalen's son. Elijah doesn't technically know if those boys are biologically his, but Elijah is very, very naive to the world. Now, what I will be doing if I see any of these fools in my neighborhood, I will be filing a restraining order the next day after seeing their ass. So I'm going to be cool, but I bet not see Lil Kenny, Kalen, Elijah. I bet not see none of these fools within 3 miles of my residence. And I mean it. I seriously mean it. So what I did, I got this text at about 9:50 from the middle son, and I'll read it again. Seriously, dude. So when he calls me that, it goes back to what the courts declared, undiagnosed psychopath. I raised Elijah and was a very decent mother to him. But there's no conscience, there's not a proper connection. He's probably not truly understanding why I don't come around him for real, because he has no emotional empathy. No mother in their right mind, unless I had a death wish on me or wish death upon myself, no mother would in their right mind would come around a son that talks to her this way. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to tell him he should have been aborted. Okay. I'm not going to say that in text because there's no verbal call. There's no phone call. So what I'm going to do is ignore the text. And Elijah in our situation won't improve because, like I said, He's around people that no longer have their mother. They have a mother that's no longer available in their life because their mother's disabled, or their mother has completely cut them out of their life. These are, and then the friends he had that have decent mothers, the one play sister, she no longer comes around Elijah or these people. And she does have a decent relationship with her mother. She was the dark-skinned, pretty black girl that was Elijah play sister. So the one that had the decent mother is no longer affiliated with any of these demons. Okay. Now, the one young man that had fell out with his mother, he was cool with me and never disrespected me directly. But I could say he disrespects me in other ways by the things that he influences Elijah to do. Influencing Elijah into a life of crime. And that friend is an older friend. And what I did about the situation is I never did come around and meet him. I don't want to meet a man that's about 10 years older than my son that teaches my son how to be a criminal. So that's disrespecting me. So I no longer go to Elijah's place. I have not been there since September of 2024. So, clarifying, in summary, verbal wars, there may be a tad bit of texting in there, but the texting is very brief. And I gave that example of how I did text a couple of times in the verbal war. However, this is part 2 of verbal wars and escalating reactive abuse. I want to just clarify this. A verbal war per se does not turn into a all-out texting war. And my narcissist and text messaging series, I did up to part 10 on those videos. I'm also not encouraging text wars. I'm actually going over things by a case-by-case basis in those series, the narcissist and text messaging. I'm going over a case-by-case basis to teach you how to handle people, how to communicate better. And also, those videos help free you from people. Also, it runs people off. Text messaging can be a forum or a method where it runs the bad people away. And I go over how to handle each case by case basis in narcissism and text messaging. I've done up to, I think, part 10s. But within verbal wars, because verbals, you're speaking more, not texting. Verbal wars are not to become a texting war, because this is why you don't want to do that. If I respond to this text and tell Elijah, yeah, you should have been aborted because you called me a dude. For one, that's extreme reactive abuse, and I don't need to do that. That's leaving bad evidence that can put me in a legal situation where I could be denied a restraining order. So at this point, I want to think about my benefits in the law. And at this point, my decision has been made on Elijah. And this is what hurts people, y'all, with me. One of the things I'm strong in is making a decision. Okay. And unfortunately, I'm going to have to make a decision to back off from Elijah. Elijah's around a bad group of people. He's around a lot of bad examples. He's no longer in the church. He's not being influenced by positive Christian people anymore. He's no longer coming around any Muslims that I know. He's totally detached himself from spiritual people. So I'm not encouraging on this channel to to stay in a verbal war too long. And you're not to make a verbal war a texting war. Okay. Notice in all my lives, my live videos where I talk about narcissists and text messaging, each situation comes to an end. And text messaging is used to end relationships. Now, in this case, I'm not going to block Elijah. And it's because I'm going to allow him to leave a evidence trail. Because I suspect I'm going to end up having to go down the road that the detectives and the police have been telling me for many, many years. It's probably going to get to the point where I'm going to have to file a restraining order on him. Or another thing that's going to happen is Elijah, because he's breaking the law anyway, I won't need to file a restraining order because he's going to be on his way to jail or the penitentiary. Or Elijah, worst case scenario, because of his personality disorder, worst case scenario is he will be unalived, shot down, seriously harmed. Those are the consequences because, see, remember, Elijah's getting older and he's a male. Even a girl, a female that behaved like this. Remember, Elijah has received many, many death threats. I have one of Elijah's death threats recorded. A guy called me, Jonah, and he said, I'm going to kill your son. And I asked Jonah, I said, please don't kill my son. And he did not kill my son. But then Jonah wanted to meet with me and stay the night with me for some freaking reason. And I'm thinking, I can't let somebody come in my house and stay the night with me and my family that's threatened to kill my son. Come to find out, Jonah cuts himself and does potential suicide shit, cutting his wrist and all kind of shit. And that's who's actually that man that threatened to kill Elijah. That's who's on that first baby's birth certificate. But he's not the father of that boy. That boy looks nothing like Jonah. That baby looks more like Elijah or some other man than Jonah. I just don't believe that Caitlin's first son is Jonah's the man that threatened to kill Elijah. So this is the thing. So with verbal wars, I want to go over how I handled it. You got to go to the video I did this morning. It's a 2-hour live where I go over the entire situation. And I wanted to add what happened. So after that verbal war kind of was squashed, it ended in this text. So it's ended. This text ended. This text ends it. Seriously, dude, this is what Elijah says. Seriously, dude, stop talking to me. You're just really annoying. Bye. I'm blocking your ass. And stop calling me from your dumb no caller ID. I don't know because caller ID that I don't know. Because you ain't about to act like you better than me and my brother. Really sick man. But like he told me in 2022, prior to July of 2022, if I was you, I would wish I didn't have a son like me. This is what he told me. So verbal wars do not become text wars. Verbal wars are very brief and simple statements and situations that take place usually over the phone as well. Okay, I just want to clarify that as well, because in no way do I want to put any of my viewers, subscribers, or anyone that would have access to this channel in any sort of danger. So this is part 2 to verbal wars and escalating reactive abuse. So in this instance, with this text, I do not react in any abusive way. Because remember, this is a channel where I lead you to peace. I experience a lot of peace in my life. I experience a lot of peace just by not allowing Elijah here as a visitor. I experience a lot of peace by not meeting with this man no more. It don't matter that they your son or your brother or your father or uncle or cousin when they treat you like this. No male should be calling you a dude, especially your own son. You morally, the other part of verbal wars, you morally disown this person. Okay? That's what it comes down to at this point. There's no need to in any way keep this type of individual in your life. It's not okay to keep them around because they're a son. Again, Allie, I want to thank you so much for coming back. How's your asthma doing, Allie? Are you having a good asthma day? I hope you are. Allie and I, we both got asthma, y'all. So she shared a little of her journey with me, and I shared with her on the live several days ago. So yeah, so again, verbal wars do not become texting wars. And just to clarify, my narcissist and text messaging series, those series are also not to have text wars going on. So that's the end of the day. I mean, that's the end of this video. I mean, at the end of the day, everything boils down to peace. Okay, on this channel. So verbal wars, you resolve it. I handled it verbally over the weekend and Monday morning at 3 a.m. That's why he's talking about the private call I made. I handled it. Verbal wars are brief, usually over the phone. That text, I'm not going to reply to it. But in this case, I'm not going to block Elijah just for emergency purposes. He could text me and say, somebody's stabbing me in my leg right now, and I'm the one that needs to call. See, it's always the people. It's always the people that you underestimate the most that you're going to need eventually. But I'm going to keep Elijah in my prayers, but he's at a very high risk of being in a horrible situation. And it's just because of the amount of death threats he gets and the enemies that he creates, inclusive of his own mother. You know, and I'm not an enemy where I would ever shoot him or harm him or anything like that. But you can create anyone to become like an enemy to you based on the horrible way that you treat them. So y'all, this device is getting ready to go out. I got some things I got to do with my family and my household. So please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you. Bye.